Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of Nerdy Movie News Roundup, the show where we round up all of the latest news in the world of nerdy movies. Yeah, it's another week, another set of news to talk about. I don't know. I don't have much in the preamble. I think we should just get into it. Why don't we? First up, we'll look at all the trailers that came out this week. There was a teaser for The Boys season 3. I thought it looked good. It there wasn't much in the way of story that was kind of revealed. Like, I'm not entirely sure where the plot, I guess, is going to go. But it was a series of very violent, gross, vulgar, prude, or not prude, the opposite of prude, sequences that all look like what you've come to expect from The Boys. And I mean, it looks exciting. This is one of my favorite shows running right now, and it looks really good. I don't know, not much else to say about it. I think the one interesting thing to comment on is, I have it as a little image here. It looks like Butcher is gonna get powers this season. It's weird because that seems out of character for him. Like, you'd think he would be ideologically opposed to taking Compound V, and I'm assuming he takes Compound V. I'm going to be very interesting to see if they explore that sort of conundrum that he would probably go through when taking Compound V. So that's going to be interesting for sure. Other than that, there just wasn't much of note as far as plot to really gleam, But yeah, I guess as far as what's coming up this season, we know we left off with Homelander kind of being left alone, right? Like, he doesn't even have sort of the very loose appearance of friendships with Queen Maeve and the Karate Kid lady. I don't remember her name. He lost the Nazi chick, right? So Homelander is completely alone and probably on the verge of just completely losing it, which is terrifying, of course. And we know that Huey was left with the lady, the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez lady, and he's working with her, and she's the villain. She blew the heads up, right? And yeah, so I'm really interested to see where all of that goes, but yeah, The Boys season 3, it looks good. Next up, we got a trailer for Miss Marvel. This is an upcoming Disney Plus MCU Marvel series, and I think the trailer looks cute. I think it very much looks like a coming of age thing. It looks like probably the most marketed at kids MCU thing ever. Honestly, now that I think about it, I mean, yeah, like this very much seems aimed at young girls, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. We'll get to Turning Red later, and I like Turning Red. So I'm not opposed to watching something that's not necessarily aimed at me. But even with that being the case, there wasn't really anything in here that I'm like, yeah, that looks really good. Like, the one weird thing is that I don't know Miss Marvel from the comic books. I've only ever the only experience I have with the character is from that Avengers game, which was not very good. But the Miss Marvel, she was great in that game. Like, she was a really great character, and I really like the Miss Marvel character, but it only really comes from that game. And the thing about Miss Marvel is that she just has an incredibly charismatic and she's just a very lovable character. And not that Iman Vellani, that's the actress who plays her, not that she isn't likable, because she definitely is. And especially when I've seen I saw a video of her finding out that she got the role, and she seems like just a really lovable, girl, right? But I didn't necessarily get that from the trailer. Like, I don't know. I don't know if maybe they just don't let her shine in the trailer as much as she will in the show. I hope that's the case, but I don't know. I Miss Marvel is just one of those characters that I feel like you should just immediately be like, yeah, I love this character. I love, like, she just seems like a really fun character. I didn't get that immediate, like, yeah, I love you, right? From the trailer. But that's a weird thing. Overall, this is the most, like, again, coming of age thing that we've ever seen before. Like, I know a lot of people are like, the Spider-Man Homecoming is like a coming of age movie. It's like a John Hughes movie, and it's like, it was kind of, but at the end of the day, it was a Spider-Man movie. This looks like a coming of age John Hughes movie, for sure. Although it's a show. Yeah, I've seen. I know I guess, like, the controversy is that she doesn't have, like, stretchy powers. Now, weirdly enough, I probably should have, like, gotten screenshots of this, but I've seen when people, like, pause on the trailer, it's like it does look like she stretches a little bit, but obviously, like, they're kind of making her powers more cosmic. And the general argument that I've seen from people is that one of the themes of Miss Marvel in the comic books is that she's not comfortable in her body, and she kind of wants to be like Captain Marvel or whatever. Like, obviously you can see her little costume there. Like, she loves Captain Marvel, and she loves the Avengers, and she wants to be like them. And even before she got powers, she wasn't comfortable in herself. Being an immigrant and all that. Like, she kind of felt like, just kind of different, right, and ashamed of that, which is the is unfortunately an experience that a lot of us face. Although I'm uh, but yeah, like. And I guess, like, her having stretchy powers, which is not necessarily the most, like, appealing or, like, visually appealing sort of power, and her kind of coming to grips with herself and her powers and learning to accept and love that side of herself. Like, apparently, like, all of that is kind of tied into the character. And I'm like, I get that. And, when you see her use, like, her cosmic powers, and she has, like, she can make, like, crystal portal things or whatever, and they look very pretty, and people say that, well, that's not what, that's like that like, the stretchy powers had, like, narrative purpose to them. And I'm like, okay, I get that, but I still think they can tell that story with just her experience as, like, a Muslim girl growing up in, like, the United States, and just her being generally awkward. Like, I still think they can tell that story. I'm not denying that the stretchy powers probably was, like, a powerful visual like, thematic device that they used. I'm not denying that, but I don't think that I don't think it's going to be impossible for them to tell that story here. But I mean, yeah, that's something that I saw a lot of people were mad about on Twitter, and I'm like, I feel like we should just wait and watch the show, right, to see exactly how they handle it. And then, not only that, it does look like she has stretchy powers, so we'll see how it plays out. And yeah, I guess some people are speculating that they didn't want to do it because they want to wait until Reed Richards, like, they want Reed Richards to be the stretchy person. I don't know that they would necessarily do that for that reason. My guess is that it's probably a budgetary thing. Like, stretchy powers are probably really expensive, and maybe they couldn't afford to do it on, like, a Disney Plus show. That's my guess. Like, I think that's probably more likely the reason, but who knows? I mean, we're gonna see, like, a She-Hulk in the Disney Plus show, and it's gonna be that's gonna be a fully CGI character. So, who knows? Okay. Next up, we got a second official trailer for Halo. Show's coming to Paramount Plus, and yeah, I think the show continues to look pretty decent. I remember the official trailer I didn't really like. I thought it looked cheap and all that, and I was like, oh, this looks not interesting at all. And then the first official trailer, I was like, oh, this looks pretty good. Like, it actually doesn't look cheap. In fact, it looks pretty high in production value. And this second trailer is just kind of me continuing with that. Like, it didn't make, I don't think it was better than the first trailer, but it was more of like, okay, yeah, no, I'm down to check this out. And yeah, so yeah, Halo still looks fine. Okay, next up, this isn't a trailer as much as it was a presentation for Hogwarts Legacy. This is the new Harry Potter game that's coming out. So they did like a state of play, which if you don't know is kind of like PlayStation's sort of, it's their version of the Nintendo Direct. And if you don't know what the Nintendo Direct is, it's basically them explaining what the game is and showing off gameplay. And I think the game looks pretty cool. You know, I'm not a Harry Potter guy. Like, I've only ever seen like the first Harry Potter movie. And it's not that I didn't like it, but for whatever reason, I just didn't watch the rest of them. So I'm not a Harry Potter guy at all. I just haven't. I haven't been like invested in the franchise. But even with that being the case, I thought the game looked pretty cool. It definitely looks like more ambitious than I necessarily thought it would be. Like, you know, there's like full seasonal cycles. There's you know, I think it's open world, or at the very least, like, you can go to different areas and explore them. Um, you know, it's like a full on like RPG thing where you can make a character, and it looks pretty expansive, you know, and it's one of those things where it might be too big for me. Like, I don't like Harry Potter is an IP that I'm like, I don't know that I need like a full on RPG. Like, I would have been happy with a more linear, you know, like 7 to 10 hour game, or, you know, or not, maybe not 7 to 10 hours, but more like 15 to 20 hours. Like, I don't know that I want to spend like 100 hours, you know, engrossing myself in the world, the wizarding world of Harry Potter. I don't know that I want to do that necessarily. But either way, it looked pretty cool. The gameplay looks actually did like the gameplay, like the combat actually looked like a lot of fun, like mixing together all the spells and whatnot. Kind of the way it kind of plays out, it kind of looks like a third person shooter, even though there isn't like a crosshair or anything, but you're just like shooting magic bolts and you're like picking people up and whatnot, and it looks fun. But yeah, so I'll probably check this out. Now, the weird thing about this is that this game looks really big, really expansive, and apparently it's coming out on Switch, because there was like an Amazon listing for a Nintendo Switch version. From what I saw of this game, I don't know that I buy that it runs on Switch. Like, that seems very suspicious to me. Um, if it runs decently well though, I might end up playing it on Switch, because I don't know. This definitely seems like a game that I'd want to like play like in bed, you know? Like a big expansive game like this. Like, I'm like, yeah, I like, if I were to get super invested in it, it would probably be a game that's like, okay, I'm in bed, getting ready to go to sleep. Let me put some hours into Hogwarts Legacy. Like, that could be a thing that I do. But yeah, either way, game looks cool. Let me know what you think of it in the comments down below. Okay, let's get into the proper news stories. Apparently, What If Season 2 is coming out in 2022. This is a tweet from the writer. You know, he's kind of responding to a tweet saying that What If 2 is officially set to premiere in 2022, and he says, "See you later this year, kids." And this is the writer on the series, I believe, or like one of the writers. Interesting. When did What If Season 2? I think it was last year, right? Late last year or so. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that they were able to get down and do it, right? Because it seems like their shows aren't like annualized, right? Like, I think Loki is the only one to have a confirmed season 2, and I don't think that's gonna end up premiering this year. So I guess it's pretty interesting that yeah, they're like, hey, what, like a normal TV show, What If Season 2 is gonna come out again next year. I want more from this series. Like, I didn't hate What If Season 1, but I was left wanting more from just the quality of the stories. I felt like I felt like the concepts that they introduced were, and the stories that they were trying to tell 13 minutes just wasn't enough to fully flesh them out, and most of them just ended up feeling very rushed and not conducive to the length that they had to tell it. So I want either more focused and more like, hey, I want the writers to go, hey, we have 13 minutes to tell a story. Let us tell a compelling story in 13 minutes. Do that, or be like, hey, let's take one concept and make a multi-episode arc out of it. Like that could also be cool. So, but yeah, either way, What If Season 2 is coming out next this year apparently. Get excited or whatever. Okay. Next up, we have a bit of a weird story, but it looks like Jaden Smith might be playing Miles Morales. Okay, this is coming from CBR. Now, I believe this is a quote from Will Smith from his Instagram, I believe. So it reads, "My son is preparing himself physically and mentally to get a place as one of the characters who will make history for the first time in the saga of a movie that many already know and ask for." So the reason why people are thinking that this is going to be Miles Morales, and I kind of fudged up this thing here. Let me see if I can just fix it. There we go. Is because there were already like rumors that Jaden Smith might be playing Miles Morales, and it's very interesting that Will Smith is like, hey, people have already been asking for this. It's something you already know. And that kind of leads people to go, ooh, is he talking about Miles Morales? Now, I don't know. I feel like it's too soon to introduce a Miles Morales, and I don't know that they would go out and get a Jaden Smith to play it. I don't know. It feels like a character that you'd want like a more of an unknown actor to play the role. Maybe. I don't know. Honestly, I don't have anything against Jaden Smith. I actually like the Karate Kid. I haven't really seen him in anything else, but I liked that his Karate Kid movie. But I just like, I don't know, like if you were to introduce him in the MCU, I feel like Tom Holland is too young to have like to be a mentor figure. Like I want to see more. I want him to see him more developed, right? Like we finally saw him at the end of No Way Home. It's like, okay, he's Spider-Man now. Let's get some more. We need more time of him Spider-Maning as the proper Spider-Man before we see him like get be a mentor. And then not only that, but Jaden Smith is like 26, I think. So it's like, why that would not work. Like as it just wouldn't work, right? Because they look too close in the same age. Although I guess I don't know. Maybe they don't have him be a mentor. Maybe he's just like a peer, you know. Because I think there was like the last Spider-Man cartoon that they did where Miles Morales was just the same age as Peter Parker. I mean that was a really bad cartoon, so don't take inspiration from that. But they could do something like that, and it's like, okay, there's that, but then, or maybe they introduce Miles in like the Sonyverse. Like maybe Miles Morales is the Spider-Man in the Sonyverse, or maybe they bring out Andrew Garfield. Maybe people really want to see him be the Spider-Man in the Sonyverse. He could potentially be a mentor figure for a Jaden Smith Miles Morales. Like that could be a thing. So I mean, yeah, I don't know. Who really knows at the end of the day? But this is a bit of a vague thing, and it definitely is people kind of wishing or like wanting, like trying to materialize something that by no means was confirmed by the studio or anybody. But we'll see where this goes. All right, next up, we are going to be getting, and this is the biggest news of the day. We will be getting a Kite Man spin-off show. Yes, please. This is coming from Screen Rant. This is or Collider. I honestly don't know which one I messed up. It's coming from somewhere. Series co-creator Patrick Schumacher just announced that a spin-off series is in the works at the streamer. The series is currently titled Noonan's and would center around Kite Man after he buys Noonan's bar. So yeah, so if you don't know, this would be a spin-off show of the Harley Quinn animated show, which by the way is really great, and I absolutely love Kite Man in that show. And yeah, I mean this, like, I'm honestly, I'm down for that team to work on whatever in that specific Harley Quinn universe, because I absolutely adore that show. I adore the humor in it. I adore the characters, and like more of that thing I am down for. And I guess kind of like the pitch of this is that he's gonna buy the bar that's in the show, and it's gonna just feature a bunch of like villains doing stuff. And I'm like, that could be a lot of fun. And I guess Kite Man kind of like finding his way, especially where he was left off in season 2. I guess I won't spoil that, but where he was left off in season 2, like kind of seeing Kite Man pick himself up, find his own way, and kind of like become something. I'm like, that is definitely like the setup for a show is absolutely there. So I'm down, whatever this ends up being. Okay. Next up, the Marvel Netflix shows are officially on Disney Plus. Here's what it looks like. Now, last week, I was like, this is where I'm going to officially make like get a position, or adhere to a position, or adopt a position is the right way to say it, of whether or not like the Defenders is MCU canon. And just looking at this, I am officially I'm making the claim that I do not think that the Marvel Netflix shows are official MCU canon. Kind of. Because here's the thing. I was waiting to see, because Marvel on Disney Plus, when you go to the Marvel stuff, you have the MCU, right? And they have all the movies in the MCU. Like, they even have like timeline order that you can watch them in, which is, interesting. But for like their Fox Marvel movies, they have them in the legacy section. So I was like, okay, if these are MCU canon, then maybe we'll see them just plop these shows in the MCU thing, right? Or if they're going to be like, hey, they're not canon, they'll put them in the legacy thing. They didn't do either of those things. They put them in their own thing, the Defenders saga. I'm like, why aren't these in the legacy things? Or I think it's Marvel Legends or something like that. Why aren't they there? Why are you giving them their own thing? That's weird. You had two very clear categories. Why must you confuse me, Marvel? Why? But I said I would adopt a position. I don't think they are. Kind of. Okay. My belief is that these shows are in the MCU multiverse. And you know what the multiverse is, right? It's been introduced in Loki, What If. I think that the Defenders universe is another universe. Like, I think it's and I think the Matt Murdock and the Kingpins that we saw in Hawkeye and Spider-Man No Way Home, I think those are variants of these characters. I don't think that they're the exact same characters. I don't think that these iterations of these characters are going to be like the same ones in the MCU. I think. That being said, I have to believe that there's a reason why they bought these shows, right? There's a reason why Disney went to Netflix and acquired these shows. I think that for all intents and purposes, I think that like you can watch these shows to like get acquainted with the characters that are going to appear in the MCU, because I just think if they're not if they're not at least somewhat connected, I think the intention of Disney is, hey, you saw Matt Murdock, you saw Daredevil in No Way Home. Hey, here's the show that you can watch to get acquainted with him. Like it would be weird if they were like, hey, you saw Matt Murdock in No Way Home. It's played by the same actor, but don't watch the Netflix show because it's not canon and it's going to be different. And it's like, that would be a really weird move for them to like blatantly go out and not only hire the same actor, but acquire these shows again. Clearly, they want you to watch them. So I think that these are different. I think they're variants of each other. But I think they're like 99% the same or like 90% the same. But yeah, I don't know. Honestly, all this could change. Kevin Feige could come out tomorrow and be like, nope, they're 100% canon. And sure, whatever. But that's where I stand as of right now. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, because I'm actually really interested to see what people think of that. Okay. There's this actress. She's going to be in the Madam Web movie with Dakota Johnson. Apparently, she's from Euphoria. I'm not familiar with her. Whatever. I don't have much to say about this, but she's going to be in the Madam Web movie. Okay, so we were talking about the Marvel Netflix shows. Now we have word that we will, in fact, be getting a Daredevil thing. It's coming from the Comic Book Reporter. According to the latest issue of Production Weekly, a trustworthy industry publication dedicated to films and series that are about to begin production, Marvel Studios has a listing for a project simply described as Daredevil Reboot. Interesting. So we, of course, were talking about how my personal belief right now is that the Daredevil and the Kingpin that we saw in Hawkeye and No Way Home are not the exact same Daredevil and Kingpin that we saw in the Marvel Netflix shows. And now we're getting a report that whatever the next iteration of Daredevil that we see, whether it be a show or a movie, is at the moment being classified as a reboot. Now, that could mean any number of things. Like, it could just be the word that they chose to do, and it's not necessarily a reboot, but it could also be just because of the fact that the shows were made by Netflix and Disney is now picking up the mantle. Like, it just technically has to be a reboot, even if like the continuity is the same, just because it's a different thing made by a different company. That's possible, but at the moment, this is kind of supporting my case, is it not? That maybe whatever this Daredevil thing we see could be a different thing. But yeah, I'm definitely intrigued by the fact that we're getting more Daredevil. And honestly, right now I'm not sure whether it's like I've been kind of worried that maybe Daredevil is not going to be rated M anymore or mature because it's in the MCU and it can't be R-rated. But we're now in a world where Disney they just straight up put the Marvel Netflix shows on their service, right? I'm like, well, damn, like maybe whatever this Daredevil thing is, more mature. We know that Deadpool is gonna be rated R, and so Marvel is definitely dipping their toes in that area. So this just makes me really interested to see what they end up doing with Daredevil. Still not gonna lie, the way that they handled Kingpin in Hawkeye, that was not it. That was not it at all. I expect better from whatever this ends up being. The Hawkeye thing scares me. I'm not gonna lie, because that was so bad. That was bafflingly bad. That I'm like, wow, just wow. So we'll see what they do with it. All right, next up. We now officially know how long at least the first 4 episodes of Moon Knight will be. I don't think anybody would consider like episode length to be a spoiler. I don't think anybody is that weird. But just in case you are, a warning, I guess. It's popping up in 3, 2, 1. Let's go. It's coming from the Comic Book Reporter. Screeners for 4 episodes of Moon Knight were sent to critics on March 17th, and the runtimes for each have subsequently leaked online, which consist of 45 minutes for episode 1, 50 minutes for episodes 2 and 3, and 51 minutes for episode 4. Each episode includes 5 minutes of credits as well. That's a pretty decent length. I mean, we've seen some of the Disney Plus shows be like, I think like 30 to I think some of them have been like 30 minutes, where they've been on the shorter side of things, and these are like pretty long, like standard episodes of television, which is pretty cool and interesting. And yeah, so I am really excited about Moon Knight. Like, at the moment, it is my most anticipated MCU project. I mean, yeah, like even more than Multiverse of Madness. Like, I'm definitely excited for Multiverse of Madness, but I mean, just the trailer for Moon Knight looks so interesting. Like, I love, I'm so fascinated by, the horror elements of it, the psychological thriller aspects of it. I think Oscar Isaacs just looks phenomenal in it. I think he's going to deliver an amazing performance. And reviews have actually come out and they're pretty strong. So I'm really excited about Moon Knight. It's only like 13 days away, which is exciting. So yep. Last story of the day. I forgot to do like an article, make like an image for an article. So I'll just tell you, there's been like, there's going to be a cosmic Marvel movie. It was kind of like uncovered that, one of the movies that Marvel has in production is going to be cosmic based. Like, it's going to be in space. Now, what is that movie? And that's actually a more interesting question than you might think, because Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, we know for sure is going to be the last Guardians movie that James Gunn directs. Well, I guess we don't know that for sure, but it's probably going to be the case. We definitely know for sure that it's going to be the last iteration of that team of Guardians. You look at Thor. I guess Thor: Love and Thunder, but that probably counts as a cosmic movie. I think it does, and I think it probably will be like space based. We know the Guardians are going to be in it. Is this necessary? I don't know that this is necessarily Thor 5. I think it might be too early for the like Thor 5 to be like rumored to start production. Could it be Eternals 2? Eternals 1 didn't necessarily perform all that well at the box office, and it was actually like pretty mixed critically. Are we necessarily going to see an Eternals 2? I don't know that we will, but with this cosmic based movie, we saw at the end of Eternals that the Eternals were going out into space. Maybe. So yeah, or maybe it's something else that we just don't know about yet. That's also like pretty interesting. Like, who knows? But yeah, it's interesting that we're definitely getting another space movie when we did it. There is not an obvious like of the space movies that we have already, there isn't an obvious choice where it's like, we're definitely getting another one of those. So yeah, I'm definitely going to be interested to see what this ends up being. Okay, so we're done with the news. Now let's get into what I've been watching. So I finished season 4 of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. I really enjoy this show. Like, this is one of those shows that I forget how good it is until I start watching every new season. I mean, especially just technically, it is a really good looking show. I think it's deceptively expensive. Like, I don't know exactly how big the budget is, but it's clearly like there's a lot of money goes into the set design. There are a lot of these like sequences where it's just like these really long takes with a bunch of like crowds of people. at the beginning of the season, I mean, there's a sequence in a fair that I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is absolutely incredible. And um one of the best things about the show I would say is the writing, where it's just a lot of dialogue that's being uh performed like in just a really kinetic way. I think all the actors are really great. It's just a really good show. Like, if you don't know, it's about a female comedian, and like I want to say like late 50s, early 60s, I think. Am I off base there? I'm not sure. Um, I'm not sure. I might have just outed myself as being a big old idiot, which is possible. But yeah, obviously, it's if you're one of these people who's like, oh, the woke SJWs are ruining movies and shows or whatever. It's like, yeah, there's a lot of this movie deals with a lot of like toxic masculinity. It deals with women being empowered. If you're not into that stuff because you're weird, then maybe this won't be for you. But I personally really like it. I think it's one of the better shows out. Just airing right now. And yeah, the way it ends off, I'm like, the way it ends off, like I heard that season 5 is going to be the finale. The way this season ends, I'm like, okay, this show is kind of running its course of like, I need something to happen here. And the way it ends, I'm like, okay, I'm excited for season 5, and I'm excited for season 5 to kind of come to a stopping point. And yeah, like I know I love the show, but I think where the show ends, I'm like, okay, I actually am excited for season 5 to wrap it up in a good way. So that's but I don't want to spoil it in case you haven't seen it. I also finished watching How I Met Your Father season 2 or season 1. I like the show. I don't love the show. I definitely tolerate the show because I love How I Met Your Mother, and I'm just like, this is the same vibe, kind of, I guess. So I watch it. But it's really not great. If you haven't seen How I Met Your Mother, I don't think you're gonna get much out of the show. Like, you might as well just watch How I Met Your Mother. But it's fine. It is what it is. I enjoy it enough. But yeah, there's not much to say about it. It's a pretty bland sitcom, but I don't mind it. I also finally finished Arcane season 1. Yeah, what can I say? This show is amazing. I mean, it's just the animation alone. I'm just consistently amazed by just how beautiful it is. Probably the best looking animated show on television. Am I wrong in that? I'm not a huge animation guy, but there are probably some anime that maybe are better, but as far as like Western animation goes, I'm hard pressed to think of something more impressive than Arcane. And then yeah, just that the show is amazing. It's weird. It's like it's the only show since Game of Thrones that has kind of scratched that Game of Thrones itch for me, in the sense that the storylines are just very far reaching, and there are just a lot of characters, and I love that, it's not just like one big cast of characters in one sort of area. It's like, this is an entire, these are like two, this is just like Arcane is like a land, and it establishes a world, and you see things happening all over this world, right, that are separate from each other but do also intertwine and do kind of coalesce around this one thing. And I'm like, and not since Game of Thrones have I seen something that's done this, like this sort of thing as well as Arcane has done. And I'm like, it scratched that itch. And I will say, it kind of ends in such a way where I was like, what? That's the end? What? No, I need more of this. And so, yeah, I don't know when season 2 is coming out. I don't know if they've even talked about it, but I'm all in on Arcane, and I guess apparently it's based on League of Legends. I've never played League of Legends. Um, Although I don't think is that game known for its story. I don't think it is because I think it's like a MOBA or something, right? So it's pretty crazy that I guess they was just like, we'll make a League of Legends show, but we're gonna make it way better than it has any right to be. So yeah, Arcade is great. If you haven't seen it, definitely go check it out. Okay, so I've also played a bit of Eastward this week. This is a game. It's kind of like it's a 2D sort of pixel based little Zelda esque RPG. And it's good so far. I'm not loving it, but I'm enjoying the art style of it and the story of it enough so far that I'm like, I'm into it. I'm only a little bit into the chapter 1. So I'm not terribly far in it at all. But I'm enjoying it so far. I'm not loving like the combat all that much. Like, at least as far as where I'm at right now, it's pretty like simplistic, and there's just not a ton of complexity to it. The puzzles that I've had to do so far aren't especially they're just not all that ingenious, I don't think. But it's enjoyable enough, and I like the aesthetic of it and the art style of it enough that I'm probably gonna keep on going with it. Okay, last thing that I'm gonna talk about that I watched this week. I watched Turning Red. I loved this movie. It's a new Pixar movie. It's basically about a girl who, Mei Ling, right? Mei. She's the little character right there, and basically the movie is a big allegory for a girl going through puberty, and in the movie, it's kind of represented by her turning into a giant panda, right? General, basic Pixar stuff. Let's talk about like a real relatable issue, but we'll disguise it with some weird like thing, right? Whether it be like where it's like a thing that I don't even, I'm not I'm trying to think of like an example of, or where it's like, hey, let's talk about a guy going through his midlife crisis, but he's a superhero, so kids will have fun with it. It's the basic thing that Pixar does. And I love this movie. And the thing about this movie is that it's just delightful. Like I had a smile on my face like pretty much the entire time watching this movie. Like, it's not like what Pixar is kind of known for, where like I never cried watching the movie. I never, I was never like, I mean, there are definitely emotional moments, and I did get kind of teary eyed at times, but that's not really like kind of what I don't know. Like, that's not, but that's not a knock on the movie, because I also don't think I've ever enjoyed and just consistently enjoyed a Pixar movie like I enjoyed this one. Like I thought it was just thoroughly delightful all the way through. And as far as the controversies surrounding the movie, I've seen some parents get mad because the daughter, she's like, I guess they show her being like defiant against her mother, and I'm like, have you seen a Disney movie? Like, did you watch Finding Nemo? Did you watch, I don't know, Pinocchio? Did you Beauty and the Beast? Like, yeah, a lot of Disney movies show the kid, not obeying their parents. Like, I don't know. That was a weird complaint. I've seen parents get mad because the movie shows like a girl, doing stuff where she's going through puberty. That's honestly, I think that's really weird too, that like you're shielding your kid from something that's going to happen to them and is just a natural part of life, of their lives. Like, maybe instead of shielding them from them that hardcore, maybe talk to them about it. Maybe let them know, like, hey, one day you're gonna go on through your period, and honestly, and by the way, they don't even show her going through her period. Like, as far as the period stuff is concerned, it's all symbolized or whatever through like her turning into a giant panda. Like that's where the period stuff ends. Like they don't even show her going through a period, but um, I I don't know. Honestly, this is just parents self-reporting, where it's like there is a scene, and I guess this is mild spoilers, but there's a scene where her mom thinks she's going on her through her period, and she brings out like pads to give her, and I'm like, if your child is either too young to even like register what pads are, or your child is old enough to maybe kind of know what pads are, and you should probably tell them about puberty. Like, that's just kind of how I feel, where I'm like, I feel like these are just parents self-reporting and admitting that they're bad parents. Where it's like, I don't know. Like, I don't think that there's anything in this movie that is all that crazy, and people just need to chill out and recognize that your kid is going to go through a lot of the stuff that they see in this movie. Like, guess what? Your kid is going to get horny, and they're going to start being attracted to people. That's just what's going to happen. Like, I'm sorry, but it just is going to happen. Your kid is going to go through puberty. You should talk to them about it and warn them. Like, if you have a daughter, she's going to go on her period. It's going to happen. You should talk to your kid about that. You should warn them. Like, I know, like, it's crazy because it's like, if I were a woman, and I'm like, and I just start bleeding out of you know where, and my mom didn't tell me, I would be like, Mom, you knew that I was going to start bleeding out of my pussy, and you did not tell me? What? How could you, mother? How could you? Like, what? Like, I don't know. I could go on a tangent about this. Boomers are annoying. It's just whatever. Who cares? I certainly don't. Well, I do. That's a lie, because obviously I got animated talking about it. But whatever. Turning Red is a really good movie, because that's the other thing. I watched the movie, and I straight up, like, I didn't even like. I mean, no, I knew about the controversy, but like the way that I heard about it, I was like, I was expecting for the walls to be painted in blood. I was like, okay, I gotta get ready, because there's gonna be some freaky stuff in here. This might like challenge even stuff that I'm able to handle. There's nothing in this movie that is like that's like overtly weird or anything like that. It's honestly pretty tame. I don't know. But yeah, let me know what you thought about any and all of the topics that we discussed today. Tell me why you disagree. Tell me why you think Turning Red is satanic Hollywood propaganda meant to brainwash your child. Let me know in the comments down below, and goodbye.